All right, so today we're doing a deep dive on how to really take Google Cloud and Workspace training to the next level. We're digging into adult learning principles for Google Cloud and Workspace training.
Ooh, okay.
Yeah, so think of it as like a cheat sheet for how to make training that actually works.
Yeah, about time, right.
Right,
We've all been in those training sessions where it feels like we're just wasting our time.
total.
This is about understanding, like, why does training work, especially
Right.
when we're all busy adults?
Yeah, especially as adults.
Yeah.
So first things first. Adults don't learn the same way that kids do. That's like point number one from the source. We can't just passively absorb information anymore. We need more like engagement and something that feels more relevant.
Exactly. And it's not just about making training fun or anything like that.
Yeah.
It's recognizing that adults are actually, like, really motivated to learn things that will help their work and their careers and their goals.
I like that a lot. Okay, so let's get into principle number one, self-directed learning. I feel like this one's really important for me. Like, I learn best when I feel like I have control over the pace and what I'm learning. How about you?
Oh, for sure. Like, if you choose what you're learning and you set the pace, you're going to be so much more invested. It uses that motivation that, like, a lot of traditional training kind of misses.
Yeah, absolutely. And the source talks about how to actually do that. Things like online courses where
Yeah.
you go at your own pace and like creating different learning paths like beginner, intermediate, advanced. You get to pick which adventure you go on.
I think that's where it gets really interesting.
Yeah.
It's not just about, like, having different choices,
Hmm.
but actually designing those choices so they're really engaging.
Right.
So, like, what if there's a learning path and the choices you make affect what content you see?
Oh, that's really cool. Like choose your own adventure for work.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And the beauty is that it works for people with different learning styles. Like, if you're already familiar with Google Cloud stuff, you can skip ahead.
Hmm.
And if you're new, you can take your time.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Okay, so principle number two, relevance to real-world applications. Seems pretty straightforward. We want to see how this training is going to help us in our jobs.
It's more than just wanting to know.
Yeah.
It's, like, essential for adults.
Right.
We're always thinking, is this worth my time?
Yeah, is this a good use of my time?
Exactly. And if it doesn't connect to what we're actually doing every day,
Yeah.
it just feels like a waste.
Okay, that makes total sense. And so they have some great examples, like showing someone who's an IT admin how to use Google Workspace security to protect their organization's data. Not just some abstract concept, but
Yeah.
actually showing what it looks like.
Right. And that's where you can get creative with the training. Instead of just telling people stuff,
Yeah.
what if you made scenarios or simulations or even, like, games that are like real-world challenges?
I love that idea. Kind of like a flight simulator, but for whatever you're learning, you can practice without breaking anything.
Exactly. And when you make it about those real-world problems, you're not just teaching skills.
Yeah,
You're teaching people how to think critically and solve problems.
I love that. Okay, principle number three, learning from experience, or what they call experiential learning. I'm a huge believer in this one. You learn by doing, not just listening.
It's such a different way of thinking about learning than how we used to do it.
Totally.
Like, you could read a million books about riding a bike,
Mhm.
but you won't actually learn until you get on and try.
Exactly. And luckily, Google Cloud has amazing tools for that. So the source mentions Google Cloud Skills Boost and Quick Labs,
Oh, yeah.
where you can do virtual labs and sandbox environments.
Nice.
And you can experiment without worrying about breaking anything.
And this isn't just for tech either.
Oh, yeah.
Like, think about leadership training. You could have simulations of tough conversations or team building exercises.
That's a great point.
Yeah. You're giving people a chance to use what they've learned in, like, a safe space.
Yeah, exactly.
And I want to mention that hands-on learning doesn't always mean, like, physically doing something.
Yeah.
Like, it could be interactive stuff or role-playing or even case studies.
Yeah, okay. So it's about being creative and making it active, not just sitting there.
Yes. You want to get the learner engaged and immersed in the learning.
Awesome. Okay, so this next one I really relate to, problem solving and task-oriented learning. When I know that something's going to help me solve a problem, I'm way more motivated to learn it.
It's all about connecting what you're learning to something real. Adults like to see results, and we want to know how we can use what we learn.
Totally. And so the source says to frame the lessons around these real challenges, like how to automate workflows in Google Workspace using AppScript, or how to migrate a company's data to Google Drive.
And the challenges don't have to be super complicated.
Right.
Even something small like How do I set up a shared calendar?
Mm.
Can be a problem to solve.
Yeah, so it's not just about taking in information, it's about using it to solve something.
Exactly. When you do that, you're teaching people how to think for themselves and use what they learn in different situations.
Makes sense. So that brings us to principle number 5, immediate applicability and skill-based learning. We want to use what we learned right away. Efficiency is key.
I love that you said efficiency because that is so important for adults.
Right.
We're always juggling a bunch of stuff,
Hmm.
and we need to know that the time we're spending is worth it.
Absolutely. And so they give some good examples here, like having learn and apply exercises where you learn about something like IAM roles, and then you get to try it out right away in a
No,
simulation.
that's smart. Or you could give people quick start guides or checklists that
Yeah.
they can use immediately.
I like that.
It's all about closing the gap between learning something and actually doing it.
So it's about giving people the tools to take what they learned and use it.
Exactly. And this is where feedback is really important. Give people chances to practice, get feedback, and improve. That's how you get good at something.
Makes sense. Okay, principle number 6, respect for prior knowledge and experience. I feel like this is huge, especially with tech, because people come from such different backgrounds.
For sure. You got to recognize what people already know and use that. Otherwise, you're just wasting their time and they'll get bored.
Totally. And so the source says to use things like pre-assessments so that people can skip over stuff they already know.
Right.
And again, they mention the beginner, intermediate, advanced paths.
I think it's important to go beyond just acknowledging what people know, though.
Yeah.
Like, what if you actually used people's experiences as part of the learning? Maybe have people share their experiences with each other.
Oh, I like that. It's about making everyone feel valued no matter what their background is.
Exactly. And that makes the learning experience so much better for everyone.
All right, so moving on to keeping things interesting. Principle number 7, engaging and interactive content. I think this is more important than ever with how much information is out there.
Yeah, you're totally right. Our attention spans are like getting shorter and shorter. So if it's not interesting, people are just going to zone out.
Exactly. Like, would you rather sit through a boring lecture or
No,
do something interactive?
give me the interactive stuff any day.
Yeah, exactly. And they have some good ideas in the source about how to make things more engaging, like using short videos instead of super long ones and having interactive quizzes to keep you on your toes.
And don't forget about gamification, like earning badges and unlocking stuff. Even a little competition can be fun. It makes learning feel more rewarding somehow.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Gamification is definitely a thing. I've seen it work. Even people who don't really like to learn get into it when there's something to achieve.
Yeah, it's all about making learning fun. It's not just about adding a bunch of bells and whistles, though. It's about making the whole experience more immersive so people want to keep learning.
I like that. The source also talks about mixing things up, using different types of content, like videos, infographics, hands-on labs, and demos.
Yeah, that makes sense. Some people learn better by seeing things. Some people learn better by hearing things.
Right, and some people need to actually do stuff to learn it.
Exactly. When you give people different options, you make sure that everyone can find something that works for them.
Okay, let's talk about motivation. Principle number 8 is all about motivation through certification and recognition. I think this is huge, especially for people who are focused on their careers.
Oh, absolutely. Certifications are a great way to show that you know your stuff. It can make you more attractive to employers, and it can help you move up in your career.
Yeah, and they talk about making sure the training aligns with the Google Cloud certifications. That way you know what you're learning is going to be useful for your career.
All right, so you're not just learning random stuff. And don't forget about those digital badges and certificates you get when you finish a course. People love sharing those on LinkedIn.
Totally. It's
Uh,
like a way to show off what you've learned.
It's a win-win. You learn new stuff, and you get recognized for it.
Exactly. And that recognition can really keep people motivated to keep learning and growing. Okay, so we've talked about all 8 of the adult learning principles. And I think it's clear that there's a lot to think about when you're designing training. It's not just about giving people information.
Yeah, it's about making the whole experience engaging and relevant. It should be something people actually enjoy doing.
Exactly. And it should help people learn and grow. These principles aren't just for people who design training, though. They're useful for anyone who's involved in learning, whether you're a student, an employee, or just someone who likes to learn new things.
Absolutely. Like, if you're an organization and you want to put these principles into practice, where do you even start?
I think the first step is to really look at your current training programs. Like, are they any good?
Yeah, are they any good? Are they actually engaging? Do they meet people's needs?
You got to be honest about what's working and what's not.
And then you got to get the learners involved. Ask them what they need and what they want to learn and how they learn best.
Yeah, make it a conversation. Don't just tell people what to do.
Right. And don't be afraid to try new things. Get feedback and make changes based on what you learn. There's no one right way to do things.
Yeah, you got to be flexible and adapt to what people need.
This has been such an interesting deep dive. I feel like I have a whole new understanding of how adults learn, and I'm excited to use these principles in my work. What about you?
Me too.
Yeah.
And I hope that everyone listening feels inspired to become a more active learner, both in their personal and professional lives.
Absolutely. Okay, so before we go, I want to leave our listeners with a bit of a challenge. Imagine you're designing the perfect Google Cloud training program for yourself. What elements from these 8 principles would you absolutely make sure to include? Oh, that's a good question. I definitely focus on hands-on stuff, real-world problems, and getting feedback from experts.
Yeah, I think I'd be right there with you. I love the idea of learning by actually doing things, not just listening to someone talk about them.
And it's so important to feel like you have some control over your learning.
Hmm.
Being able to explore different things, try stuff out, make mistakes, and learn from them. That's what makes learning really stick.
I agree completely.
Yeah.
All right, so we've covered a lot of ground today. We talked about the 8 adult learning principles and how to make training more engaging and effective. We talked about the importance of feedback, recognizing achievements, and creating a culture of learning. And we even challenged you to design your own perfect training program.
Yeah, that was a good one.
So, what are your final thoughts? Anything else you want to add before we wrap up?
I just want to say that learning is a journey, not a destination.
Ooh, I like that.
So, be curious, be open to new things, and never stop learning.
That's perfect. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. It's been a pleasure.
Thanks for having me.
It's making me think these principles aren't just for Google Cloud, right?
Oh, yeah, for
They
sure.
could apply to like anything. Like
Yeah,
if you're learning a language or, how to cook,
anything.
training for a marathon, anything. They can make learning anything better and more engaging.
It's about knowing how people learn and making a plan that works for them.
Okay, before we wrap things up, I want to talk about one more thing. We've talked a lot about individual learners,
Mm-hmm.
but what about the organization as a whole? What's their role?
That's a good point. The organization has to make learning part of the culture.
Okay, yeah.
It's not just about offering some training.
Right.
You have to create a space where people value learning and they're encouraged to do it.
Where it's seen as an investment, not a cost.
Exactly. Give employees time to learn, recognize their achievements, and make continuous improvement part of the culture.
So it's about making a workplace where people feel like they can learn and grow and get better at what they do.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And when you have that, everyone wins. People are more engaged, more productive, and more creative.
This has been such a great deep dive. I feel like I have a whole new understanding of adult learning, and I'm excited to use these principles.
Me too. I hope everyone listening feels inspired to become a more active learner, both in their work and personal life.
Yeah, for sure. And remember, learning's a journey, not a destination, so be curious, try new things, and never stop learning.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
That's perfect. Thanks so much for joining us today. It's been amazing.
Thanks for having me.